Hello everyone, Rebecca here from Stocking My Pantry, and in today's video we're going to be doing quick pickled radishes. Now since these are quick pickled, they will not be canned, they will just be refrigerated, but they can last in the refrigerator for up to 3 months. So they're still a great way to preserve radishes and they're super easy. I may or may not have said we'll be making 2 different types of pickled radishes, 2 different recipes. They are both from the all-new Ball Book of Canning and Preserving. Now, one thing that I love about quick pickles is that they are just super easy. So it's not going to take much time at all. And in fact, the fact that they're easy is why I'm going to do 2 recipes in this video when I usually only do 1. So the first recipe is going to be lime pickled radishes, which uses lime instead of vinegar. And I'll go over the ingredients in just a minute. That is found on page 244. And then the second ingredient is sweet pickled radishes, and that uses vinegar and of course sugar. There's a little bit of sugar in the first one as well. Okay, so what I'd like to do is first of all just go over the ingredients with you and then we'll put them together. So it calls for a half a cup of fresh lime juice. However, since this book came out, it's been corrected to use bottled lime juice instead of fresh. So fresh bottled lime juice is what I'm using. 1/4 of a cup of water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon salt, 1 teaspoon coriander seeds, 1 bunch of radishes, about a half a pound, leaves and roots trimmed and cut into 1/8 inch slices. Some of my slices might be closer to 1/4 inch. But anyway, I just did the best I can with slicing the radishes, fairly thin. If you have a mandolin or a food processor, that may work better than doing them by hand. But I don't, so I did it by hand, and so they're not perfectly even. And then 1/4 of a cup of thin vertical red onion slices and 1 tablespoon of chopped fresh cilantro. Okay, now let's just follow the recipe step by step. It says to bring the first 5 ingredients, and I'm using this little burner, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. It says bring the first 5 ingredients to a boil in a small stainless steel or enameled saucepan. So the first 5 ingredients are the half cup of lime juice, 1/4 of a cup of water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, a teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of coriander seeds. So those are the first ingredients. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, now it says to bring them to a boil, so that's what we're going to do now. It might take a couple of minutes for them to boil. And so bring them to a boil, and then it also says to pack the radish slices, onion, and cilantro into a hot jar. So that's actually what I'm going to do while I'm waiting for this to come to a boil. I'm just going to move this burner over. So I have here 2 pint jars filled with really hot water, and that was to heat up the jars. And so what I'm going to do is, while I'm waiting for the brine to come to a boil, and it's starting to make noise, so I don't think it'll take long, is I'm going to take this first one over to the sink, dump out the water, and start putting in the radishes and the cilantro and the red onions. Okay, so I'll be right back after I dump this, and this one I'll just keep the lid on and then it'll stay hot for the next recipe. Alright, so we'll just start putting the radishes into the jar, and the jar is hot enough I can't handle it, so it should handle the boiling liquid just fine. In the meantime, our brine has already started coming to a boil, so I'm just going to go ahead and turn this burner way down, and I've got the jar about half full at this point. I'm going to go ahead and just put in the onions and the cilantro. And then we'll fill the jar the rest of the way with radishes. Okay, let me just turn that burner all the way off because it's boiling like crazy. Okay, let's read what the next thing says. It says, pour the hot pickling liquid over radish mixture. Center jar and lid, apply band, and adjust to fingertip tight. Now this is kind of interesting because it's saying adjust to fingertip tight, but we're not canning this. And so what I'm just going to do is I am just going to use these plastic mason jar lids. They're really inexpensive, but I prefer to use these when I'm doing a refrigerator pickle. So when you have the acid, the salt, all of that tends to go into pickles, the metal lids can kind of corrode. So I'm just going to use this for that. And I'm not worrying about fingertip tight because I'm not canning this. Okay, so let me get my funnel. Okay, now hopefully you can see this. There is a tiny bit that is not covered in the brine. I am not going to worry about that. I'll just eat those first, and then the rest of it is submerged in the brine. So I've got a couple sticking up. I'll just eat those straight sooner rather than later. Okay, now we put the lid on, and we will set them on this rack, and they need to stay on the rack for about an hour until they're cool, and then they'll go into the refrigerator. And they need to stay in the refrigerator for at least 6 hours before you eat them. So, and like I said, they will last for 3 months. So I'm going to go ahead now and get going on the other batch of radishes, but you saw how easy that was, okay? So let me pull the ingredients for the next recipe over here, and then we'll get those made. Okay, so for this recipe, of course, we will also need radishes. And the same amount, 1 bunch of radishes, about a ½ pound, stem and root ends removed and cut into 1/4-inch slices, or 1/8-inch slices, a ½ of a cup of white or apple cider vinegar, a ½ cup of sugar, a 1/4 cup of water, 1 teaspoon ball salt for pickling and preserving, 1 teaspoon mustard seeds, a ½ teaspoon ground black pepper, 1 bay leaf, and a ½ teaspoon of dried crushed red pepper flakes, which are optional. So obviously if you don't like it hot, you can leave the red pepper flakes out. All right, so we're going to do basically the same process. It's going to be, first says place the radishes in a hot 1-pint jar, and then to bring the next 6 ingredients to a boil. I'm going to go ahead and get everything in here, and then while I'm bringing it to a boil, I'm going to put the radishes in the jar just like I did last time. Okay, so the first 6 ingredients, not counting the radishes, that'll be the vinegar. You can use white or apple cider. I am using white because the apple cider vinegar kind of discolors the radishes. So I'm going to add the vinegar and a ½ cup of sugar, ¼ cup of water, a teaspoon of pickling salt, a teaspoon of mustard seeds, a ½ teaspoon of ground black pepper, and 1 bay leaf, and then a ½ teaspoon of dried crushed red pepper flakes. All right, so same drill. We're going to go ahead and get this burner started to bring them to a boil. And I'm going to put all of these little jars and stuff that I had the spices away. and then we'll fill the jar with the radishes while the brine is coming to a boil. Okay, like before, I'm just going to move the burner to the side. Here's my jar with the hot water. I'm going to dump out the hot water. I'll be right back. And this is still hot enough that I don't want to handle it with my hands. So that's actually a good sign. That means the jar has stayed good and hot. And so I'm just going to take it over to the sink and dump it. And we'll go ahead and fill it with radishes. Now this time, I'm not putting any extra ingredients into the jar. Everything is in the pot besides the radishes. So, you know, with the other recipe, the cilantro and onions needed to go into the jar. And so what I'm going to do though is I'm going to leave a little space at the top because I want to be able to put the bay leaf in so it'll stay in the jar and help season it. And so I'm going to leave a little space because remember how there wasn't quite enough brine with the first recipe. So I'm a little concerned about that for this one as well. So I'm going to go ahead. It has come to a boil. You might be able to hear it. I'm not sure if it's on camera where you can see it, but it is boiling. So, and it doesn't say to boil it for any particular time, just to bring it to a boil. Okay, and so we're going to go ahead and turn it off. Turn off the burner. And then we'll pour the brine into the jar. I have a little bit more brine here, but the bay leaf kind of got stuck, so I want to kind of put it down in there. Okay. All right, now this one, I actually think it was good not packing it quite as full with the radishes. You can see I have a little bit of radishes left here. Let me say I actually started with 2 pounds of radishes, so a total of a pound for each jar. Some of my radishes, I had stuck them in the fridge when I got them. I had them for maybe a week before I was able to get around to this. Some of them got kind of frozen. Then there were a couple that just weren't that nice. So I recommend buying, even though it calls for a half a pound, I recommend buying a pound for each pint jar. Okay, so same thing we're going to do with this is we're just going to put the lid on. And again, it says fingertip tight, which I don't think the tightness really matters when you're doing refrigerated pickles. And so anyway, here is the first one, the lime ones, and here are the sweet pickled radishes. So what I'm going to do is leave these out for about an hour, and then I'm going to stick them in the refrigerator. We actually have company coming today from out of state. They're just going to be passing through, and I'll be feeding them lunch and everything. So at the 6-hour mark, I won't be able to test these out. But sometime this evening, I will pull these out of the refrigerator, and I'll give a little taste test so you guys can see what I think about how they turned out. So I'll bring you back at that time. See you guys in a bit. Okay, so it's been about 8 hours since I made these. I let them cool for an hour and then stuck them in the fridge. And we'll take a look at them, but then also I'll give a taste test. I haven't tasted these yet, so I don't really know what to expect. But let's go ahead and check them out. So the first thing that I notice is that this one that was the lime pickled radish, remember how they were sticking up? Just a teeny bit of it was sticking out now. I think just the hot brine plus then probably just the vinegar soaking in kind of softened them a little bit, and they shrunk down. So they went under the surface, except a little teeny piece here. And of course I'm going to eat that. And this is the sweet pickled radish here. All right, so one thing I do want to say is radishes, when you're fermenting or pickling, they kind of stink a little bit. Not horribly, but there is this distinct, I don't even know what to say, but the only way to really know is to experience it. But it does have a little bit of an off-putting smell, but it's not horrible. Okay, so first, let me go ahead and I'm going to try the lime pickled radish. Okay, I really like it, in part, I think because of the lime, but also the cilantro and onion adds a nice touch. And then, of course, there were the coriander seeds, a little bit of sugar. You guys remember the ingredients. So, good flavor. I would definitely enjoy eating these. So, now I want to taste the sweet pickled radish. Okay. This one I don't like as much. I think it's probably the peppers, not the peppers, but the pepper flakes. Now, to me, it kind of reminds me a little bit like horseradish, which I don't eat a lot, so I might be misrepresenting that. But that's just kind of my initial thought of how it tastes. Not bad, but I definitely like the lime pickled radish better. Since there's such small batch and so easy to make, I would definitely recommend trying both of them to see which one you like best. But my initial thought for sure is the lime pickled radish is the one that I would personally go for making it again. I will make this one probably again, and yet since I enjoyed this the lime one better, that's probably, if I was going to pickle radishes, that would be the one that I would do. So again, these aren't like horrible, but I really love the flavor of the lime, probably because I like lime, also like cilantro, the red onions, and all of that. One thing that I just want to point out is the beautiful color of these. Obviously, I've pickled red onions before, and they make the brine and beautiful red color. Same with these, so they are a very, very attractive thing. And of course, the radishes themselves take on the color. That might deepen a little bit over time as well. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you would like the video, and if you haven't already done so, if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.